the level of treatment that I've given of this law of one philosophy so far is extremely superficial, and that really is not a lack of my ability as much as it is a lack of time and the depth and the complexity of this material. We are, as a planet, moving into what they call fourth density. It is a density of what they call unconditional love when it's on the positive side, and on the negative side, it's love of self. So you can have 4D positive, 4D negative. Some people are going 4D negative, like some of these top Illuminati people. But you really wouldn't want to do that, because when you get there, if you're a new graduate, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and everybody else is over you, and it's like being in the Hellraiser movies, as I've said before. Whereas the positive 4D, which is what the Earth is becoming, it's only in 3D, which is where we are now, that you can have openly negative and openly positive entities live on the same planet. As soon as you get above 3D, negative entities cannot live on a 4D positive planet or a 5D positive planet. So 4D is like the heart chakra, okay? Well, people say, what could be wrong with unconditional love? Well, there is a very big problem with unconditional love, and that is that it's not informed by wisdom, which is the fifth chakra. Unconditional love without wisdom is where a lot of people are right now, and they're having a lot of problems in marriages, in relationships, in jobs, in family interrelations with our government structure, because these people with these very open hearts can be very easily manipulated, taken advantage of by others. They don't have the strength of character to be able to just say no, to be able to just say, this is my life, this is my space, this is my body, you can't have it. And that's one of the things that's very difficult about being a public figure in spirituality, is that people see you as a public figure as their family, and they're almost like their property. And so people meet me and they just want to take me out to dinner, and they want to have these long conversations and tell me their life story. And when you're in a room with 500 people that are all trying to do that at the same time, which I've been in many circumstances, it's not pleasant. So the Earth is moving into a state that is more advanced. The Law of One says it's 100 times more harmonious than living on the Earth right now. That's hard to imagine. But it's still only 4D. When you get up to 5D, that's when you really learn all the scientific stuff, the wisdom, which is honor. Actually, the honor principle is very important. Honor is the principle in which you are willing to sacrifice yourself for a greater cause, and in which you have a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility, whereas a 4D person with a very open heart, you may have a very open heart, but you also may say, well, I just don't want to do that because it's not fun. I only want to do things that I enjoy. The principle of honor is a principle that says, I have a responsibility to do this. I might not like it, but it's my job, it's my responsibility, and I'm going to make sure that it gets done. So you have the two primal forces in the universe, love and light. Love is fourth density, light or wisdom is fifth density. The unity of love and light is sixth density, the brow chakra. That's the level that your higher self is at. That's the level that Ra is coming from. At that level, you have compassion and wisdom, compassionate wisdom, unity, oneness. And then after that, you have the seventh density, which is the level of what they call the guardians. These are the entities that actually advise groups like Ra. They watch over us when we go through this process where our planet shifts from one dimension to another, and make sure that nobody falls off to the wayside, that everybody gets where they need to go. So we're under enormous protection. The guardians, what they do basically is they reach a point where they say the looking backward is finished. And what that means is they've reviewed their whole soul's history, all the past lives they've ever had, and they gain all the knowledge there is to know. They become fully enlightened. At that point, they gain what's called spiritual mass. This is all Law of One philosophy now, which becomes like gravity, and you actually begin collapsing into oneness, which means by the time you're at a seventh density level, it's almost like you are a star. Like a whole star is your being now, or even a whole galaxy potentially is your being. And these entities eventually collide back into oneness. Galaxies eventually implode on themselves, and that's not just something that you're seeing out in space as a star or a galaxy collapsing. It's actually an entity that has finished its curriculum of evolution and is regaining its unity with the oneness. After the seventh density, you go into the mystery of what's called intelligent infinity, which is oneness, the true oneness. in which you have no memory, no identity, no sense of past, present, or future, simply allness and foreverness. And that freaks a lot of people out. They say, well, I don't want to ever lose my personality. I don't want to lose anything. It's not losing anything, it's gaining. It's gaining back who you really are, because you're not separate from this universe. You are the universe. That's the really important message of the Law of One is everybody suffers and goes through their drug addictions and their shopaholic, workaholic, rageaholic, driving too fast. All of these addictive behaviors, all these mind melds that we get into with negative energy are all a function of like feeling separated from God or from the Creator, as if we've been abandoned, left alone, isolated here. You reach a point in your cosmic evolution where God is not something out there that you're saying, oh, there it is. It's within. So how could you be a messiah on a planet? How could anybody be? Because that implies that it's somebody else, right? It's not somebody else, it's you. You are the Christ consciousness. And the second coming of Christ, as Casey described it, Edgar Casey, is something that's happening in a lot of people. So it would be inappropriate in the extreme for me to claim any type of uniqueness or special ability or rank that's higher than other people. So we are moving out of that hierarchical thing, and that is definitely part of what this fourth density consciousness is about.
Okay, so to bring you back to today and where we are here on this planet at this time, that's a journey some of us are going through as individuals all the time on the surface of the earth. Some people have come from other densities who have already graduated to certain degrees of that. And then the earth itself is going through that, okay, as an entity. You bring it back to here and now, and you're dealing with sort of the opposites that exist on the planet here, the good, the evil, you've got ETs that are coming across as positive and might have a negative intention.
Absolutely.
You've got ETs that are coming across as negative and may actually facilitate a positive reaction
in certain circumstances,
us.
Yes.
And then you've got ETs that are coming from the fifth, from the love, the unity of love and wisdom. And
right.
Some of these are visible to us because in a sense there's also sort of a piercing of the veil happening.
First of all, you raised one interesting point that I want to comment on first, and that is that only beings in fourth and fifth density require UFOs to travel. When you get up to the sixth density level, you are now the equivalent of a whole planet worth of people like us. It's fused into one mind. And that becomes such a powerful entity that it will just think itself anywhere in the universe it wants to go, and it's there. It does not require a ship to travel. UFOs are actually something that these ETs generally are creating with their own consciousness. They manifest it based on kind of like blueprints that they can download. The internet is a very apt metaphor of what shared consciousness is like. We are moving into, when we move into the fourth density on Earth, we will have superhero powers. By comparison to where we are now, you will be able to levitate yourself. You'll be able to instantly manifest objects with your thought. You'll be able to travel through time, travel through space. You'll be able to provide for instantaneous healing, and there is telepathic communication. So there are no secrets anymore. Everyone's consciousness is unified. You can't hide anything from other people. That's a very profound, discontinuous shift from where we are now.
That leads into where ETs are at this moment, because they do have at least telepathic abilities, most of them,
right,
that are far advanced of most Earthlings.
Absolutely, absolutely correct.
So that leaves us at a disadvantage depending on what their agendas are. So maybe you could talk about that.
We are experiencing the Battle of Armageddon on this planet. It is not something that occurs in the future. The Law of One philosophy is just one philosophy which is based on what we call ageless wisdom or esoteric wisdom. And I'm not trying to say that this material is the only material that's any good. However, it is a fact, to my understanding, that most channeling that you see out there on the internet now, or in books for that matter, most of it is highly distorted. And the reason why is that There is a battle of Armageddon going on. It is not something that occurs right at the end of the age in the last few years before 2012. It's actually been occurring for thousands of years. And it's a battle between good ETs and bad ETs is one way to say it, even though good and bad is a very relative, subjective term. When we say good, we mean entities that are service to others oriented, meaning that their purpose is to help, to love, to create a unifying of people together in love. Entities on the service to self path believe that they are helping, believe that they are creating spiritual evolution, but they do it by interfering with you, by making you uncomfortable, making you unhappy, colliding with your free will. And they will try to invade a planet and conquer a planet. But they can't do that unless they have the desire of those planets' inhabitants to be conquered. That's a very important point. They have to have the free will mandate. The people have to say, yes, we want to be enslaved, we want to be taken over. That's why they can't just sweep into a planet and invade and take over. Now, the beings that are above 5th density, like in 6th density, you have the unifying of service to self and service to others. Negative and positive are the same. They come together. And some people get really freaked out when we say that. But it's true. There is a level at which the Creator uses the negative path and the positive path to promote evolution. One of the really great tenets of Law of One philosophy is what happened at the dawn of creation. There was only the positive path. Every being knew that it was one with God, knew that it was one with the Creator. There was no sense of separation. And as a result, nobody was growing, nobody was evolving. It was very stale, very boring. People were spending thousands and thousands and thousands of years in 3rd density, which is where we are now, without ever graduating, because nobody needed to help each other, and that's the whole point. The changes on the Earth that we're seeing now, all the upheavals with the honeybee collapse, and then with the SARS virus, and with the Earth changes, and the solar system changes, and the government conspiracies and corruption, and the fossil fuels dwindling, and the gas prices are going up, and the economy might collapse, and all these things that are happening are designed to sort of make us uncomfortable so that we draw together and that we find a way to connect with each other and become more at peace as a society. And we start seeing how the path of separation and pulling each other apart doesn't work anymore, that we have to come together as a unified consciousness. So when you're dealing with evolution in the universe, it was very early in our creation that one of the galaxies represent the primordial creators. They basically set up a whole system of evolution of 22 archetypes, 22 basic experiences that every person on every planet will go through in that galaxy. And wherever you are now, there is a veil between the conscious mind and the superconscious mind, meaning that you can consciously believe that God has abandoned you, that you have no connection to the universe. That is the seed of the negative path. The seed of the negative path is separation. The pain of feeling that God doesn't exist or God has abandoned you leads to you feeling like no one else has any value. When you start awakening to these laws of the cosmos, the radiant mind energy that's all over the cosmos, you then feel that you have become a God where none existed. And therefore everyone else is like insects compared to where you are. And that in order to enlighten them, you have to enslave them. That's the basis of the negative path. There are entities who believe this way who are higher evolved than human, higher evolved than the people on the planet at this time. And they are trying to come to this planet, trying to take over. However, those 7th density beings I spoke of before, known as the Guardians, their job is to create this wall of protection around the Earth, which is called a quarantine. And that basically ensures that they will never be able to invade. Now, because we as a planet are not uniformly positive, we have a blending of positive and negative influence. That means the average person may, on the one hand, say, I love you to their spouse, and then go and cheat on them with somebody else. Okay? A lot of people on this planet think of themselves as, they say, well, we're basically good people. We're all basically good at heart. In the Diary of Anne Frank, that famous line she says at the end, here she's been tortured by the Nazis, right? And she says, but I do believe that we're all really good at heart. Well, that's actually the problem, is that there are people who are doing very negative things who believe they're basically good at heart, and they're not dealing with the disconnect between the good part and the part that's hurting people. So you might have a guy who says, well, I love my wife and I support my family, but yet he's going out to strip bars or he's cheating on her with somebody else. When mass murderers and murderers in general have been interviewed when they're on death row, they don't say, I'm this terrible killer. They almost invariably will have justified the murder for whatever reason, even if it's people that they didn't know and they had no connection to. They will come up with some reason for why what they did was a good thing. So we as a planet are in a situation where we are doing negative things, but we're not aware that they're negative, and that's a major problem that we have. So as a result, we end up forcing ourselves to have these negative greetings, as they're called. We have these entities around us that could provide a perfect protection from negative entities interfering with our planet if we had the mandate as a society to be only positive. But we don't. We're creating negative energy in our own lives, like by lying to people. That's a great example. If you can look somebody in the eye and know that you're not telling them the truth, but you're doing it basically for your own benefit, then in some small way you're sending some energy out there that will allow a negative greeting to happen in your own life, which means you might have bad karma. You might suddenly hit your head on the door and you're bleeding, and or it could also be something that happens to the whole planet. This is why we have corrupt government. This is why we have environmental degradation. This is why we have earth changes. The earth changes are actually very much like what the primitive society said. The earth is a living organism. If we were getting along harmoniously as a people, we would not be having earthquakes. We would not be having hurricanes, tornadoes. None of that stuff would be happening. It's a projection of our disharmony.